Welcome to this program today, and it is entitled Reframing, Positive Reframing. This kind of began with a dream that I had one night, and in it was Elon Musk, believe it or not. I have never dreamed about him before, and seemed to be having a very intense relationship with him. And when I woke up, I asked myself, why is Mr. Musk in my dream? And I realized that I kept thinking, okay, what do I think of him? Well, he's really associated with SpaceX and Starlink. And I thought, Starlink, that's my trigger word that I need to incorporate in my thinking right now, because Spirit is reminding me about our relationship to the stars and to the universe. And that relationship, when we're thinking about that, is actually our relationship to ourself, our higher self. It's our own inner universe or world that we're thinking of here. So how do we reach that higher, finer self, the universal self, which is composed of all love and peace and harmony? Those who have found the spiritual path will tell you it really is through dedicated prayer and meditation. And that is true. But this life on planet Earth is a journey. And the arrival at a perfect destination is yet beyond all of us. Although we need to keep going on and trying for that goal. Now, most people will attest to the fact that there has been a certain amount of programming that they have experienced in their formative years, which informs us about life and how life works and, what to think about it and how to proceed. And some of that has been in our adult life. We look at it with a little bit dubious credulity because we don't find out that as we awaken, we find out that some of this material doesn't fit us anymore, and it really was never really true. Now, belief is what we were given in this, whatever we were involved in this system. It's a powerful thing. It drives and colors everything in our lives, and it is our truth as we see it at the time. Until we take a look and reevaluate things, it's going to remain the truth until we look at it and say, okay, this doesn't seem to fit anymore. Now, I like to go back to Bruce Lipton's book. He did that big physiological dive into the power of belief, and he was looking at the simple cells and the entire organism of the individual, and that the mind operating the structures of the brain reaches everywhere. He proved that very definitively, along with other researchers. He also gives a lot of credit to scientists that I was familiar with at NIH, Dr. Candace Pert, when she did her work with also thinking ahead and thinking about how all of this works. So he does give credit to her, and she did look into the world of the emotions and how that works. So between them, the two of them, and many others behind the scenes, we find that our mind sends signals through the nervous system in a most highly developed, sophisticated manner that science is still trying to grab. I mean, they haven't found the answer yet, because our physiology, how we're all wired, and how all the dimensions of self, this is a vast study, and they're just really getting going. But they're making some good progress, and we do understand a lot more today than we did 40, 50 years ago. For instance, the mind sends controlled regulatory signals to the nervous system to bring specific emotions to the individual. So all of that is being tracked today. And it's interesting But, we are having the lived experience of this. So, and today's talk is really about healing and moving energy correctly so that our life flows according to our higher goals and purposes. The areas that keep us from these are the fears and uncertainty about self's performance. These emotional states, along with the bad habits that undermine our physical body, are really the subjects of today. I place this lesson here in our intuitive development workshop time slot because understanding the skill of positive reframe will aid everyone's ability to further develop their intuition. This is very important so that nothing is in your way. So we need discernment when we decide to reframe. Many people grow up in a strict household where feelings were not acknowledged as important. In these cases, people will override common sense and normal responses to events and try to accept what is unacceptable to a healthy ego. The healthy ego would not try to be okay with something like a terrorist attack resulting in death or destruction of any kind. That's the extreme end. We need to learn what is appropriate and appropriate responses. We are never asked to sit back and do nothing. If we feel that we have been given something to do, we can't let something prevent us from doing that. So it's important to be aligned and to have clearing in ourselves so that we can be appropriate. And we can be appropriate when we reframe those parts that are interfering with a healthy body, mind, and spirit alignment. Now, we know the mind is not the brain. The brain is only a physical mechanism necessary for the mind, which is our divine intelligence, to live and enliven a physical human form. So who are we when we do not have a physical form as we know it, when we don't have a body? Well, the physical body is an electromagnetic energy form, and our spiritual divine self, our divine intellect, our mind is a subatomic energy form. The electromagnetic body is part of the electromagnetic earth. And the elements that comprise the body are all elements found in the earth. That's why all of these natural helps are so helpful to the body, because it relates back and forth. And that's why you can gain healthy body using some of the earth energies that are out there for us to help ourselves with. But our eternal self is the divine intellect, which many call the soul. Now, as every high school student knows, the mind is multi-layered. The highest mind is the mind of God in us, known as the I Am Presence. Well, they don't know that, but we who have been studying our metaphysics know that that's true. And our human brain is at the lower end of the layer, or the mind that operates through the brain in our day-to-day life is called the concrete mind. And there are layers in between. That's the multi-layered effect. And the most commonly known and referred to is the subconscious mind. This is the part that takes everything quite literally. It does not understand a joke or do any interpretations of a statement. It just takes everything literally. Now, while there is extensive research on mapping the brain and its function, we are really addressing the mind in this talk. So there's a lot of information about how the brain works. and it's very fascinating. But this is really about the mind in this. Now, I recently saw a program focusing on Gen Z. Now, they've given everybody a category to be in your age group, and I thought, oh my goodness, I mean, I guess I'm in the original group, so they didn't even give me a name. They're just the old folks. But I had to look up with Gen Z who they were, and it's apparently those born between the year 1997 and 2012. So today, these would be ages 12 through 27. Now, in the video, I was introduced to three very intelligent young people who appear, I mean, in my estimation, they didn't say how old they were, but they seem to be in the older end of that group. And they were very interested in helping the rest of their group because of the problems that are rampant. And the one individual was a rapper. Now I'm going to try to pronounce his name. His first name is Zub, and Dudzizu. Okay, how about Zub? And in general, they were reporting that Gen Z has a lot of problems with bipolar. They said they call themselves bipolar or OCD or PTSD, and are not coping very well. And actually, as this young man said, they're identifying into the condition. There are so many psych meds that they're using, as well as other drugs, because they need to escape in their minds. They go into these escapism behaviors, as they're called, and some of them very extremely so. And they're not actually connected to anything in their experience in their day-to-day lives. They move away from the normal action of finding solutions and coping with their world experience. When reality catches up to all this avoidance behavior, there are no life skills developed. They can't function. The most undisciplined people are the most unhappy with life and with themselves. Now, escapism takes many forms, as constant daydreaming, even reality. Then they were talking about reality shifting, where these young individuals are claiming they can shift themselves into another universe. Now, I had an experience with my granddaughter telling me about this. She was on TikTok, and this is like 4 years ago, at least. And she said, oh, there's this one guy on TikTok who is crying all the time to us, everybody he's speaking to on TikTok, that he can't stay in his other universe. He has created such a alignment with his mind, taking him away into another world where everything is perfect, that when he has to come back, when he's pulled back, he can't cope and he's constantly crying. And she said he's getting a lot of flack back to him because the kids that are on with her on TikTok, she said, are kind of laughing. And I said, it's not a laughing matter, because this is somebody in extreme pain and needing such help. And apparently no one is aware of it. The difficulty with this is they're sharing it with each other, and they're not looking to say this to anyone else who might have more understanding and be able to give them some sort of help. So he continues by saying that these young people diagnose themselves. And this is based on things they see on TikTok, various YouTube presentations, and through other naive, inexperienced young people. Normal life experiences become identified as pathology. Normal sadness interprets as depression. Worry becomes anxiety. Having a bad experience becomes trauma. And they seek both legal and illegal medications for it. They don't realize they are here to experience life, not escape it. And they ended up by saying that the Gen Z who fit this category need to find purpose and meaning. And each of them had, in this program, had their own journey that they were on and had these problems. So that's why they were there, trying to give back to help them, people who are not yet awakened to the understanding of that you have to do the work and you have to get help and find a purpose in life. That was the most important message that they had. So before we get to reframing, I would just want to present that to you because there is a very big need in the youth today to be getting help. And I think as we learn to progress in our understanding of ourselves and how we can help ourselves become a bit better than we were before, there at least we are aware of the trauma and the drama that's going on, and young people who are the future of this country, of the world. They really do need to get some better help than they're getting. But so I believe the message before we begin should start with the big picture. The worth, the value, and the purpose of each individual. I think that's part of what they need to hear. I really don't think that it's widely promoted, and at least not enough, that everybody has great value and has a definite purpose to be here. Now, we at CCWH speak about this very often on this subject. So that's, I'm speaking to those present today, or I'm preaching to the choir. But the young people addressed in that program were disconnected from their souls. Each divine presence who embodied that as that individual had a grand design for the lifetime with goals to achieve. They were given individual talents and strengths to face each challenge. So somewhere that instruction was lost or not fostered. So parents, friends, educators, and medical people have to step up to help them out of this deteriorated condition of body and soul. They need faith and they need truth. And those were the two things that these young people also recommended. It's interesting when young people are waking up, they are almost immediately where we were. We took us 40, 50 years to get here, but they get there very quickly once they can get the correct information. But as Michelle taught, lifestyle habits are the only thing we can change after we pass our early years where we were influenced by genetics, both spiritual and physical, and early conditioning teaching. Once we became adults, we made choices different than those that we were taught into. Perspectives and beliefs can change. We form patterns of brain function that ingrain themselves because of continual use of that particular neural pathway. But brains are plastic and can change, as Dr. Michael Mezernick did a lot of the original work in that area as well. And we can change that and give us better and new input. And that finally brings us around to our topic for today. What is positive reframing? This, I'm referring to it because the term comes from the work of Grinder and Bandler, who taught NLP, which stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. It's important to understand in this system that all experience can serve as a foundation for learning, and it's not that they are positive or negative, wanted or unwanted, good or bad. You can't assign things like that. It's the experience. So NLP says that in your experience, nothing really happened. Oh, how about that? You just made up a series of perceptions about, or a set of perceptions about the event that happened. Now that's their basic understanding. NLP helps people change their personal history as one of the ways that it helps people. They say that made up memories can change you just as well as the made up perceptions of the original real world life event. So they have a system in place that when I went to the training, it's particularly, I thought, complicated. I mean, I really strained myself to try to get a handle on how they were really approaching it, because it had many factors to it. So that part of the NLP is not something that you can do on your own. You really do need an NLP practitioner who can guide you through that. Once you understand that we do make decisions about an experience and give it a label that has accompanying emotions, once you get that, it's fairly easy to see how a change can be accomplished. So they help you get there to that point. But it does take a lot of skill on the part of the practitioner. Now, NLP also states that each and every piece of behavior has a positive function in some context. They don't believe that people have these perceptions for nothing. In other words, there's a reason, there's a good reason that for the person to hold it. The problem is, to everyone else, it looks irrational, or it looks that it doesn't fit. They don't understand what the mechanism within the individual is calling that up. So no matter what it looks like, there is something called secondary gain that they're having. No matter how painful or bizarre the individual is getting something out of it for reasons unknown to us. So this is where a therapist is needed for people who are way out there with their behaviors, because that has to be discovered in order to help them. So this is not where we are as everyday individuals who are coping well, but there is something that NLP can offer, and there are other ways that NLP works. And this one is that you can do a context reframing. And here is where the behavior does not necessarily change, but the meaning of it changes. Some people call this redefining or relabeling. What is done is attaching a new response to some sensory meaning. This application in the cause of helping the Gen Z would require a good therapist skilled in these techniques, but it would really help them. That would give them that individual help they need. On a larger level, they need to have more connection with family and friends who could help them regain faith and find the larger truths they can't see. They need to learn to find trust in God and believe in themselves. If we cannot directly help, then we can and must pray for their recovery from this escapism. And here is where we need to use scientific prayers. And the scientific prayer is when you pray with absolute confidence and envision the end result as already being there. But be sure that you picture loving and competent people around them in a healthy setting when you are doing this work. How are we doing ourselves? Of course, we have to decide first what our target is. If we have any residual fear that's keeping us from our best performance, question that. Or is there a bad habit affecting our best efforts to be healthy and strong physically? In the book Solutions by Leslie Cameron Bandler, wife of Bandler who started NLP, who's also a therapist, she indicated that we need a well-formed outcome when we make our changes. We need to do this, and it has certain conditions to it. And the first one condition is that it has to be stated in the positive. Book after book, no matter where you go, when you find out that positive affirmation, positive outlooks, positive views are the most important, because turkeys can't fly. Negative things don't fly. You remember that old TV show, WKRP in Cincinnati, when the guy took the turkeys up thinking he was doing a good thing and throwing them out of the airplane? He didn't realize turkeys don't fly. It was a disaster. This is the way we can look at negative thinking. They're things that don't fly. They're going to bomb out when you get out there. They're not going anywhere except in a very bad direction. The second thing, you have to have a demonstrable sensory experience. This means that while insights are enlightening, they do not constitute an experiential change. You have to have some sensory evidence to verify that you've arrived at your goal. You have to establish the kind of experience or behavior that will constitute success. You must identify this. You have to know when you've arrived at your goal. You have to have a target that is visible and can be seen. This is important feedback. You can't just say, oh, yeah, I get the concept and go on. When you're doing this, you have a positive statement about what you're doing and know, when I get to this point, I will be doing these behaviors. Now, the third thing is specified and contextualized. Now, that means the outcome must be appropriately contextualized to the position, that to the situation, such as things as to where and with whom and how. All of those things under these circumstances, with this person or with this group or with this, and when and how. All of those are important. And if it's successful, you'll be able to maintain it. And that's an important part of it, to know whether you've reached your goal or not just thought about it was a good thing and you keep slipping back. It will be constantly maintained. And the fifth point would be to preserve any existing positive byproducts of it. And she said it's best explained by an example. There was a woman who came to her to stop smoking. And she was very successful in helping her. And the woman went out, and after, she went out, and months later, she came back. She said, well, I'm not smoking, but I need now help for my marriage because my marriage is breaking up. It turned out that when she smoked, she would light the cigarette after meals, and her husband would come and join her, and they'd have this lovely discussion every single night. But when she stopped smoking, she didn't sit down anymore to talk. They just, went on their way. They never communicated anymore. That was their best time to get together. So when the therapist figured that out with her, and she put not smoking, but they just sat down after dinner and deliberately sat down like they were going to smoke. it improved the marriage again. They established the communication again, and the marriage didn't need to have any therapy because it was fine from that time on. So that was the positive part of it. We had the negative thing of the smoking, but the positive thing, you don't really realize that there is something possibly positive in this, and that was the fact that there was communication going on. So always trying to figure that out with ourselves may not be helpful. We might need to figure that out over a longer period of time or with some help. But believe me, it would be very useful. The other thing I highly recommend is Dr. Carla McLaren's work with emotions. In her work, you understand that emotions are not good or bad, but a normal way that we are informed from other levels of self. This is material that is important to us. For instance, anger is not bad in itself. It is what you do with it that makes the determination. And my concern for some, we'll call them New Age people that I have met along the way, is that they have tried to either incorporate or excuse bad behavior and immobilize themselves to act in that would have been an appropriate way to solve the problems. Dr. McLaren is a loving and competent guide in the area of emotions. Every emotion has a positive meaning to it, and it's important that we understand why they're there. But we also need to understand then what the negative side of it is so that we don't fall into that. So another stellar therapist I have found that is particularly helpful is Dr. Judith Orloff, Orloff. And in her book, Positive Energy, she speaks about harnessing the loving and nurturing forces from within, which we are aware of in our group. And by releasing this, dispels the negative energy that keeps us feeble and unhealthy on so many levels. So her practice as a psychiatrist, who, by the way, has mad intuitive skills. She is really intuitive. She has a life drama that she has gone through to get to that point. And she's a very interesting individual, is how she developed that. But she treats the emotional turmoil people have in their lives because she totally understands it. And so her statement is the warrior individual tracks their emotions and recast, which reframes. That's what she's talking about. Negativity. You're changing it over. The individual who portrays the victim is beaten down and oblivious. Garnering positive energy requires moral courage, heart, and chutzpah, or nerve. In working with people, she points out that expecting the worst will energetically create a negative force field around you, and you won't be disappointed in what you get as a result. I think we used to call that Murphy's Law. Dr. Orloff also points out that even the ones who believe they are spiritually evolved had to take up the awareness every day to rid self of negative emotions that do come up. So she recommends a few things. She said, be aware of your fears. Please identify your fears. She's very keen about that. So they cannot ambush you. Be aware of the things that you do fear. Listen to your intuition. And when you're in a fear, say a prayer to lift it. She's a very spiritual therapist. Make a gratitude list. She feels that helps. Go to energetically uplifting places and visit places, she said, that feed your soul. It's important that we take ourselves out and put ourselves in a field of positive energy. Now, She said, and seek help to heal old energetic scars. And she said, for all you empaths out there, avoid absorbing other people's fears. Keep at a distance when possible. Do grounding exercises and start with deep breathing. I believe that it would be helpful in when we are doing our inner work of grounding and centering, that we have some physical movement that would accompany that there. And that can be almost anything. One of the energies that I have learned that came through on, I think it was Donna Eden, was if you take your hands and as you're standing up, just pull energy from one hip down to the from one top of the hip with your one hand down to the other. The other hand goes down the other side. And then take your hands at your waist and just pull the energy down your legs. Now, if you're seated, you can continue on down past the knees and go out, and you would be taking the energy out through the toes. You just align your energy, just push it out that way and see it being pushed out. I think sometimes it would help individuals learning when you do a lot of the mind exercises and you're trying to grab hold of it and you wonder sometimes, did I do enough? Is it actually happening? It would help to use your hands to do something physically that would also indicate that this is happening. And the other thing is to practice daily affirmations, which I highly recommend. Those channeled by Reverend Lusan, our founder for the organization. They're found on our website, and you can download those. And I also recommend lighting a candle and saying a positive affirmation when you're lighting it. Very often, a small ceremony can enhance a positive statement and embed it more firmly in the psyche. So the affirmation for centering is a very powerful one that we use frequently in our organization. It's one that Michelle channeled in from spirit. The affirmations that Michelle brought in were brought in from spirit. It's not something that she made up out of her imagination. These words and what is being said are seen from a different level, from those in spirit who can see energy moving very clearly and they're directing it. This does the job of centering and balancing. Of course, our faith, hope, and charity affirmation is important because it balances all the major meridians of energy in the body to align body, mind, and spirit. So download those from our website at ccwh.com. I think you will enjoy those and keep them in your life. But any change has to start with a positive statement of what is desired. Making change is really a matter of paying attention to the appearance of when that undesirable element comes in, it pops up, and immediately restate it with a positive in its place. But praying, meditating, and asking for help to make that desired change. So I'll end by recommending the following to practice each day on your affirmations. Now, to have a book, it's an old book from Edgar Cayce's foundation, done by Harold Riley, the therapist who worked with Edgar Cayce for many years. And the one simple exercise, I was always recommending exercise. That was a very important part, even just walking, getting out in the air and getting outside. But the very simple exercise, he liked people to get up in the morning and do an exercise. So the one is you get out of bed and you take a deep breath while rising up on your toes and swinging your arms out to the sides and up. Inhaling as you're doing this, and then exhaling as you're bringing your arms down and your feet are going, your heels are going to the ground. Bring your arms across your waist. It would be across the waist and bend over. And it's meant to expel more air from the lungs. And you're saying, ha, as you're doing that. And he recommends you do that 2 more times. Apparently, it has a very enlivening and energizing and balancing energy that goes with that. So but it's actually Dr. Riley's or Harold Riley's version of the original Casey recommendation. And that's the one that Riley taught in his work. I also always recommend Dr. Donna Eden's energy exercises each day because she's always working with the meridian lines of energy. These are the flowing energies in our body that outside of the chakras, all of these energy systems that are working, that are tied into the chakras, are moving, and some when they don't move because something is blocking them. It's important that we keep them all moving and aligned and working with each other. And she does simple tapping exercise. You get up you do these simple things. You tap on the bones under the eyes, on where the where those sinus places would be, and you don't have to hit hard. You just tap, tap, tap. And then you go down to the notch of the sternum where the 2 collarbones come together. There's a little notch there. And you do the tapping on each side there. Then you do the tapping on the sternum itself. And she said it's like the great apes. You go, they do this. They said the animals do this normally, especially in the higher animal system of the ape systems. And then you go to the sides. This takes care of 4 different meridian lines of energy by going and tapping at the sides of your waist right here on the sides. Just find that right where the bra would be on a woman, underneath the nipple. And that's where the points are for those energy systems. There's simple things to do. And you know that the energies, this truly does line energies up for you. When you're caught in a situation where you need to think more clearly, you do the scalp pull, or you take your fingers and you put them in the middle of your forehead, and you bring on the in-breath, take a breath in and then slowly let it out as your hand is going across there. And you open, what she said is opening up the scalp, opening up your mind. And you just keep going up your forehead. And then you go into your hairline, you're pulling. And she said, do it with force, like you're pulling the sutures line apart in your head. And you go all the way down to the back of your head. And you come down and you put your hands on your shoulders for a few minutes, and then you bring your hands to your heart. She said that will open and clear your mind when you need that done for yourselves. So I'd like to have people understand that there's a lot of energy work that can be incorporated with positive change affirmations, positive reframing of something that you're going to take a look at. You're fearful, you're identifying the fear. You have a goal of changing that. You identify it, and this is what you're going to do in the positive end. Your goal would be, when you face this particular situation, that you will have a higher level of performance facing it than you did in the past. And you just bring yourself up gradually, step by step. The reframing part of it. I like to think that we can incorporate these energies, lines of energies, working with energy in our body as well, because you need to know that we are addressing higher and lower. It is important to think about that. Have something for the body, as we did in the Casey affirmation. Have something for your mind would be affirmations and rearrangement of your thinking kind of thing as you've been determining it. And for your spirit, you'll be doing your meditation and prayer. And these need to be all in one day where you're doing your work that puts body, mind, and spirit. This is three things that should be done if, I guess, ideally within a shorter time frame. Because that exercises are very simple. They're not very long. Affirmations are not very long. And positive affirmation and meditation and prayer. This does not also have to be that long, but this is the kind of work that Casey said, if you set your foot on putting something positive in your life to make changes, it's important that you continue it, especially if it has very good outcome. He said it does not do well to put something in and then abandon it and then pick it up when you think about it some other time. There's something detrimental in doing that. I'm not sure what he meant by that, but it's going to be a very positive thing to find a program that you can put yourself under so that you can maintain a more positive view of life, so that you can have a system to bring you up in life and keep you on target. So reframing, that will help in all the reframing you want to do, all of those activities. Now, if you want to study, I have a list of the books and the people I am referring to. You can do a lot of work extra on yourself and find out more about NLP, but it is a complicated system. There is it's more for the therapist, but the hints in there are helpful. But you would probably need some of these other people to help you out with your own personal view of it. So if you email me a request, if you need some intensive personal work with a therapist, if you email me a request, I will contact one of our ministers who is a social worker, and I will find the avenue for you in your area, how you find that person. That's how we're going to work it. We're not going to do anything directly at this level, at this professional skilled therapist level. That's an independent thing that you need to do for yourself. But spiritual counseling, we can do that here. And we can help you keep your goals high and keep moving in life and help sort out some things that are easy to do. And for us as ministers to help you with along the way. I realized that this is a very big topic. When I got going in it, I realized that it was a lot of material that could be presented, and I feel it could be followed up with another presentation on a specific topic in a few weeks. So in the meantime, I'd like to have any questions that you have about anything or comments, because I know that people have done a lot of their own work and they have some experience from our own group of people present today. So I would really enjoy having your comments or questions. Maybe clarify anything I said or add something to something I forgot. That'd be fine.
Mary, one of the things that I was thinking of when you were talking about Gen Z, how can we help them? Because I was thinking of this when you're talking about it. How can we help them when they don't want to listen to these things you're talking about? I have witnessed this so much around me, and like you said, I felt like that everything is, especially when I heard the term ADHD. I said, why don't they just say people learn differently instead of trying to put a label, or I don't know, I think it's somewhat of a negative label, but people have a different skill set, and how can we convince them when they appear to not being able to be convinced, to redirect them?
Well, I know that's been a struggle for a lot of families today, because that particular generation is in most people's family that I know of, and certainly within my own family, where there have been resistant people who have taken a very strange route from the rest of the families. Their performance and their view of life. I agree. It is very, you can't, as I said, you can only lead the horse to water. You can't make him drink. And, gosh, whoever thought of that statement sure knew humanity and brought that up because, no, I find that the nice resource for people you might be able to get some help with is go to Prager University. They are very concerned about this. They are, and this is where the video that I watched was from these young people addressing this. These are people who are also concerned. And I think that they have a ton of videos on Prager. They are G-E-R, Prager University. And they are very dedicated to making sense, helping people make sense out of their life. I don't know what else they have there. There's a lot of videos. I can't guarantee all the other content, but this one I found particularly, I thought was very helpful and beneficial to understanding what people are going through. And my own channel has said people are losing faith. They need not only to connect with faith, they need to connect with their hope. They're also losing hope. So it's important that we continue to do our prayers, our sending energy that we are doing through the organization. But the awareness of this is important for you because you never know when you're going to have the opportunity to step up. You never know when God is going to send somebody to you for insight or for some kind of help that you will now say, yes, I understand. I know this is going on. You shouldn't have the person come up and inform you of something that you really could know about that's going on in the world. So it has to do with us being aware and aware of our position as spiritual beings, that we are here to anchor the positivity and the higher dimensional energies that we carry. We have to be ready and able to stay ourselves concerned for our own well-being, and in fact, then be the beacon of light and be a strength for somebody else. So as you learn more about the needs of people, you may find a way to reach out that is beyond your prayers and meditation. But I do want you to think about doing the scientific prayer on this. So you really need to see people surrounded by loving people who are supportive and competent in their ability to help the person. So that would be useful. Yes, it's very frustrating to know this is there. It's even frustrating to have it in your family and know what you know and give them that information and still have them walk away from it. But once they have heard, they cannot unhear it. It's there. It's planted. Whether at what point that their own divinity is going to step in and give them a situation where they can use that information or be aware of it and be able to seek some better help, even if it's not you as an individual coming back to you. They might find it in another, but they'll have that seed that you've already put there. We don't always get to see the end result of what we plant. We don't see the growth and the harvesting. And we have to operate in faith that everything we are and all that we're about is planting seeds somewhere for someone, and that they are able to harvest that. It would be lovely if we had an organizational structure that put us in the community. We had one before COVID, and we had a physical gathering and we had a physical presence, at least in even a rental place where we had more we could have developed more there. But in the fact that we are in the position we are is okay, because everyone is still connected and we are still sending a very powerful energy out there into the world. As a group, we are, I mean, impenetrable. The light is impenetrable that we send out. No one is going to get through us, through the light we send out, and create a problem. We are the ones flushing the negativity away. If anybody has a suggestion for anything that we can do that would help and develop a program that would be of some use, by gosh, of course we'll do it. But I'm depending on other people coming up with some creative ideas where we can be more healing. It's really part of our healing work. I see it. We're not therapists. We can't be called that, but we are healers. And we can devise something, I guess, as we kind of come up with some creative solutions. We'll implement them. We'll put them in place. I'm going to stop the